Welcome back to the second episode. Continuing from the previous conversation, luxury brands these days are refraining from resorting to traditional advertising techniques. They're not going for television advertisements or such advertisements, and they're moving to some other ways of marketing themselves. So, how does this happen? Could you please provide us some insights into this very different sort of marketing?
Yeah, see, in regards to the luxury brand marketing strategies, premium brands can actually better connect with their consumers, cultivate loyalty and reward exclusivity by incorporating digital marketing methods, okay, or which are embraced actually by mass brands. Now, luxury brands can increase revenue by as much as 40 to 50% by using these strategies. I can tell you just offhand what are the kind of 4 to 5 key strategies that immediately come to my mind. See, first is use social to share on brand images and reinforce your premium product desirability, as I would call it. See, you can do it, you can post the pictures. The luxury brands should not overlook the impact of social media on their digital marketing, right? So Instagram and Twitter, if you ask me, are the kind of natural channels for luxury brands to showcase the affluent lifestyle and designer tastes of their target audience. See, while it's ideal to share image of your product, see, luxury brands can also create such a very curated kind of a look. You understand what I mean? That shows the elite lifestyle lived by their brand ambassadors. The kind of target audience that they have in mind, they can actually show them, they can actually display them living a certain kind of lifestyle. Go to Chanel number 5's official Instagram page, you'll understand exactly what I mean. They're essentially displaying the lifestyle, okay? And they're using a lot of these others to promote a certain league of people who will patronize Chanel, right? The second thing is create a sense of exclusivity through perquisites, through perks. See, luxury brands should always strive to build their email list, the mailing list, just like other brands. Now, the email list, for example, gives you reliable access to your customers who have indicated by opting to that they want to hear from you and they want to hear more from you about your product. Fine. Luxury brands have the opportunity to not only just communicate with customers on email, but to use this channel, okay, to essentially create exclusivity among brand evangelists and reward customers. You have to make them feel special. You have to make them feel privileged. That and what is coming to them is only coming to them and nobody else. By virtue of their purchases and by virtue of their patronizing a certain brand, they have access to certain very special things happening in that town which are not accessible to, let's say, you, me, or any of us. You understand? These are only available to a select few. The third is you invest in aspirational content marketing. You have to create a story. You have to create a content. Luxury brands have millions of followers. Okay, people who aspire to own these brands someday, however, do not have the immediate wherewithal or anything at the disposal to buy them right away. Okay, there could be millions of people who are following a Mercedes, for example, or they love a car like a Bentley or a Lamborghini. However, they covet the look and feel of the brand. Okay, aspirational target marketing is a great way to target these consumers. Okay, retain their interest. You continue retaining that for over a period of time and position them to become a consumer when they can afford it. Now, content marketing is something which is widely shared. It generates a lot of what you say SEO buzz. You understand what is SEO buzz? SEO?
Search
It's
engine
what you call as
optimization.
search engine optimization. Absolutely right. Search engine optimization. Okay, and it's presently overlooked by luxury brands. Other thing which I can think about is use digital means to tell your story. Right? One feature that sets luxury brands apart from mass brands is the brand story. See, all of them, if you notice carefully, whether it's the Royal Salute whiskey, or if you talk about the single malts like Glenfiddich or Glenlivet, or if you talk about the green label Johnny Walker or the blue label Johnny Walker, for that matter, all of them have a story about it. Now, some of these are created stories. Some of these are built as stories. The story shares the beliefs and values which are associated with the luxury brand, while sort of teasing out a sort of mystery. You create some sort of a mystique around your brand. You create an aura, a halo around your brand, or a legend associated with your brand, which is either revolving around the brand's founder member, or the icon or the mascot that you associate with the brand. Luxury brands have always told their story to attract the customers, but the digital sphere offers even more ways to vocalize that narrative. I can tell you, Glenn Fiddish, since I mentioned that name earlier, you go through Glenn Fiddish's story on the YouTube channel, which offers very educational kind of videos. See, that's the way to go about it. See, luxury brands should not forget about the traditional SEO tactics, okay, to get their products actually found in search. Now, luxury brands are lagging behind their peers when it comes to digital marketing. However, in the world of luxury brand marketing, what happens is brands who embrace these strategies, okay, now will best position themselves for stronger growth without sacrificing any of their exclusivity or any of their brand value and imagery.
So,
Yeah.
so like we talked about how much digital marketing, etc., is important for even for luxury brands. So like one
Okay.
question I would sure our listeners would also like to know about is that there is a lot of buzz about digitally enhanced retail stores. Do you have
Interesting.
could you share some insights?
Yeah, digital transformation and its impact on the retail industry is how I would like to put it. Okay. In the last few years, if you notice, there has been a radical change in the use of technology. It's not that the technology was not there earlier. The technology has been there for quite some time. The point is, only in the last few years, you're seeing people actually learning to use it, wanting to use it, compelled to use it. The reason is very simple. Retail has become boring. So how do you infuse excitement into that? How do you bring the customer back into your shop? So which is where you try and digitize, you try and use technology to bring in that, that element of awe, element of oomph, as you call it, and some kind of a traction that you want to create in the store, some kind of engagement that you want to create in the store, which is where the digital has started. Now, retail enterprises, what they have done is they have started looking at existing business models to strategize and add innovations which are digital inclusive, right? While several digital innovations are changing the pace of the retail industry, see, most of them are centered around engaging customers and upgrading operations. So far, they have been limited to that, engaging customers and upgrading operations. Retailers are also investing in the right infrastructure and technology, such as chatbots. Okay, you must have heard about cloud artificial intelligence and recommendation engines that enhance their sales capabilities of the in-store associate. Okay, the salesperson towards delighting customers. Personalization, for example, plays a very pivotal kind of a role in enhancing customer experience, but not shopping there. Digitization offers added perks, such as data intelligence, okay, and streamlined processes in the organization that in turn help to reduce your costs. See, by adapting to digitization and adopting digitization, retailers will experience actually cost savings. Distinct cost savings are there, and operational efficiency across all areas of their business, starting from sourcing to pricing strategy to inventory planning, which is extremely critical, the merchandise planning, employees training, and finally the customer engagement. Okay, so technological advancements and the rapid consumerism, okay, of technology have impacted actually the heart of the retail industry, if you ask me. The technology evolution, what I mentioned about emergence of e-commerce, which we can also speak in details about, digital and mobile kind of wallets. This is a new concept. There is mobility, and there is cloud computing, and there is artificial intelligence. There is Internet of Things, proliferation of data, emergence of social media, real-time analytics, which are available to you in a store, sitting in one place, automated personalization, knowing each customer and customizing, optimizing to meet that individual preference or requirement, has changed the way retail business is conducted in many industries. And in this evolution, see, the financial sector, if you ask me, is actually seated at the epicenter, if you notice. Okay. So when we look at India, which is the third largest country in terms of internet users in the world, okay, with a highly social and mobile audience, okay, and a growing financial services sector, very, very important. See, needless to say, the Indian financial retail services sector is rapidly evolving and changing. And this evolution is actually, it has led equally by the supply side. The Indian financial technical fintech services, as you call it, okay, and the larger financial service companies who are rapidly adopting and embracing the digital, okay, and the demand side, the digitally savvy. See, it's all about the experience that you create from his or her financial solution. The other aspect which I would like to touch upon is in this digital retail financial evolution, okay, the non-banking financial companies, NBFCs, as you call it, okay, have a very key role to play. They have a very significant role to play. Now, a potential hybrid between a bank and let's say a fintech, okay, NBFCs have the agility and the risk appetite actually to embark upon new financial initiatives, also embark upon innovative digital business models, right, offering lower systemic risks to people. The NBFCs have a unique role to play wherein they can, alongside good governance, they can also use technology to create very innovative, transparent, and reliable financial digital products, okay, and services. The new digital era, to my mind, I think has actually arrived in India and here to stay. I mean, that's the way I would put it. And what makes the journey very exciting, even more exhilarating than the way, is that it has just begun. We have just started it. Okay, the next era actually belongs to this particular kind of a digi revolution, and who can shed their skin very periodically and innovate, continue to innovate, is to those who are adept, absolutely, at understanding the customer as well as technology, and more importantly, juxtapose the two, marry the two to develop, what shall I say, a very unique digital consumer, kind of experience, very winning proposition. That's the way I would put it. So truly exciting times ahead, I would say, to both the customers and the industry, thanks to this digital revolution and its impact.
So now we'd like to move to the rapid fire round, which is supposed to be a very fun round. We'll ask you some very fun questions, not very serious ones.
All right.
So here we start off. What's your favorite book?
Interesting. Actually, I may disappoint you with some of my answers, but the thing is, look, as a book, there is an all-time favorite epic of mine is Mahabharata. The human emotions, the characterizations, the interpersonal relationships, the conflicts, and the political underplays, and everything is there, just about everything.
So moving on to the next question, what is your idea of an ideal weekend?
Idea of a weekend is always spending quality time with family at my second home, which is somewhere in Kasara, where there is no television, no telephones, nobody to disturb. Okay, no social media at all, no socializing. Okay, we don't call people over, etc. We enjoy ethnic local cuisine.
So what's your favorite food?
I'm a foodie, so I enjoy all kinds of cuisine. But to answer your question straight, I love Indian food of all kinds. So whether it's a South Indian breakfast or a North Indian breakfast, or a good, nice Maharashtrian or a Gujarati lunch, or a Mughlai or a Tandoori kind of a cuisine in the night is what I prefer. I mean, I've traveled the world over extensively, multiple times over, but I've come to the studied conclusion that Indian food remains the best. The kind of diversity which Indian food offers. I mean, you go from one state to another and the food changes and wow, delightfully changes.
So what is your favorite hobby?
Favorite hobby? The hobbies have, essentially I love reading all the time. I've been a voracious reader right from my school days. Okay, I read a lot, and read a lot of fiction. It's not only management books or only the theory or the Gyan books, but a lot of fiction is what I've been reading all the time.
Thank you, sir. This was a wonderful session indeed. As a closing note, we'd love you to share some closing words with the upcoming managers regarding the skill set essential in today's day and age.
Yeah, I would like to sort of put it in a, I wanted to give some tips, but okay, I would restrict it to a few kind of a thing. Everything else people would have told you. I mean, about how you need to be very intelligent, how your IQ needs to be higher, and how your reasoning ability, your arithmetical ability and comprehension, and you have to be articulate, you have to be a good orator, all of that is fine. To my mind, I would say EQ is something which I would rate the highest. If I were to just condense it briefly and say, the emotional intelligence is, to my mind, holds the ultimate importance in today's world. The way you come across with people, the way you behave, the way you hold yourself, carry yourself with your superiors, your peers, your subordinates, okay, with your teams, okay, and how you manage your interpersonal relationships with people, how you place a premium on relationships, how you sort of emotionally are able to control and compose yourself, okay, in the most trying circumstances, in the most challenging situations, and how your responses sort of, develop or become that much sharper and that much more refined under the most demanding times, okay, and how as a composed human being, you present that kind of a solid and bankable phase is where your qualities as a good leader and as a good manager lie. I mean, that's the way I would put it.
So that's all, folks.
Yeah.
Subscribe to the channel to listen to more episodes. We will be back with episode 3 for you.